So we have a special guest today who will be moderating our event, and that's Mr. Ken Arnold. A little bit about Ken. He has over 60 years of experience in facilities design, project management, and offshore safety. He worked over 16 years at Shell Oil Company and led a Paragon Engineering Services for 25 years. Since 2007, Ken has been a consultant to the oil and gas industry. He is a professional engineer and member of both the National Academy of Engineering and the National Academy of Construction. Served on the Marine Board of National Academics, the Board of Society of Petroleum Engineering, and the Texas Academy of Medicine, Engineering, Science, and Technology, and the Gulf Research Program. Ken is a member of the Steering Committee of Global Energy Mentors, trustee of Southwest Research Institute, and is past chair of NAC Safety Committee. He is the co-author of 2 textbooks on production facilities and his top facilities engineering at the University of Houston and Technion University, and served on the Engineering Advisory Councils of Cornell and Tulane. So we'll welcome Ken to the stage. And joined with Ken, we have Christopher Toomey from USC FPM, Elias from PENTA Building Group, Robert Rodriguez from Bali Construction, Kevin Whitaker of W.E. O'Neill, Devin Caringella from Clark Construction, and Jose Alday from Turner. Please give our panelists a warm welcome.
The purpose of this panel is to have these industry representatives describe the culture of safety in their organizations, its importance, and what they would like new engineering and construction graduates to know about safety culture. Now, this was pointed out to me to be important at the last symposium that we had that was co-sponsored by the National Academy of Engineering in D.C. just 2 weeks ago. Is that the new ABET criteria now includes a criteria for safety. It used to just be teaching ethics. Now it says ethics and safety. Doesn't say much, but at least we got the word safety in there, okay, which is new. But ASCE has come out with guidelines for how to implement the criteria. And I recommend that for everybody. Pages 24 and 25 of the ASCE guidelines talk about how to implement safety culture and the importance of doing it. And in those 2 pages, they reference the proceedings of the first 5 symposium that NAC put on in 2022-2023. So we're beginning to get attraction from ABET, and that should be a reason why those of you who are in the academic profession should be interested in teaching safety culture, because it is, at least for civil engineering, it is a requirement now. Okay, now the way we're going to do this is I'm going to ask each panel member in order to introduce themselves and to provide their initial thoughts on how safety culture drives success of their company. And then we'll move on to a question and answer format. I have some prepared questions. Unfortunately, they don't know what they are, but they're very bright people, I can tell just by looking at them. Okay. And then hopefully we'll have some time for questions from the audience as well. I hope so. We'll go as fast as we can. So, and the first question is, how does safety culture in your organization drive the success of your company? And, 2 to 3 minutes at best, but please introduce yourself.
Okay, I am Elias Brooks. I am not Rod Weber, as pictured on the slide. I am the younger, more handsome version of the safety department. And how safety culture is important to PENTA. I mean, it's everything for us. It is kind of the foundation as to what we do and what we believe, and it kind of starts there. And, everybody in our organization is involved with safety, from a project engineer to an intern to a project manager. It's never just the safety person. I am the regional safety director for PENTA, but it's not solely my responsibility when I walk onto a project for safety. To be honest, in our company, that lands square on the shoulders of the superintendent. They are responsible for it, and they are the lead. My job is to really help them get there to make sure that, from a technical aspect, we're rocking and rolling. And so, everything starts with the safety culture for us. Okay. How y'all doing? Rob Rodriguez. With our culture, I just want to bring something into focus. Every organization, success, failure, is built on its people. And we talked about people a few times throughout the presentations, very good presentations this morning. People are invaluable. They are the greatest asset, the greatest resource in every company. And so my challenge for everyone here, as we challenge ourselves as an organization, is empowering our people, growing our people, leading our people. People don't really care what you know until they know that you care. And that human element, it's just, we can't forget about it. We can have the best safety technology, we could have the best safety system in place, but if our people are left behind, if they're not bought in to that system, you're going to fail as an organization. So the efficacy of your company, the success of your company, it needs to be built on that foundational level, which is in our company, our safety culture. And so is your safety rolled up in your core values for your company, right? A lot of us, we would say that it is, right? But do people even know what that is? Do you even know your core values? We talk about the word culture. What is your culture? A lot of people refer to it. I think it was defined earlier in one of the presentations. Norms, values, and beliefs of the organization. Is that at every level of the organization? Does that new apprentice feel the same way as that 30-year superintendent? Are they looking at safety in the same way? How are we bridging that gap? We talked about continuous improvement. That's something that we've been emphasizing at Bali a lot over the last few years. Because without that continuous improvement, the numbers are going to stay the same. We saw that with the fatality rates, right? The numbers are just going to stay the same. So what are we doing to continually improve ourselves? And that's where that technology comes in, right? Using that technology to our benefit to make more informed decisions, to understand the trends and what's happening across our organization, to make things better, to protect our people every single day. Sorry. They're excited about this stuff.
That's a hard one to follow. Hi, I'm Kevin Whitaker with W.E. O'Neill, Regional Director of Safety for them. For us, safety culture really is an extension of our company culture. It's a culture of caring. We care about the individuals. We care about the people who come on our job sites. So the way we look at it, the way I look at it is, if you're coming into our house when you're coming on our job, and we're there to treat you well and have a symbiotic relationship with our trade partners and with our people. And so the culture that we try to set is one of caring. And I think that drives a lot of our success, because we're building the relationships with not only the people in the field, but building relationships with those trade partners. And we're also building relationships with our clients. Then making sure that we're trying to educate them on why we're doing things a certain way or not doing things a certain way.
Good. Yeah, hi, I'm J Toomey. I'm the Vice President and Executive Director of Facilities Planning and Management Area USC. Somewhat different because we are not a commercial enterprise. And so our approach to safety really has to span beyond construction to facilities maintenance, real estate and asset management, and all sorts of different other work and tasks we have. I would say that from our standpoint, a key driver of our culture, it has to do with a sense of leader accountability, and really something that is non-delegatable as a leader. I consider myself the Chief Safety Officer for facilities planning and management, though I wear many hats, and I have some people to assist me with that. That accountability is driven into our contractual standards, which need to be unambiguous, clearly understood, and also to be something that we do not consider violations of lightly, both in terms of the contractor teams who are going and working for those standards, and I have several of them up here, but also in terms of our teams who are providing that degree of oversight. So that consistency of standards, that leadership accountability, all those things we consider essential to driving and ensuring that we have a rigorous safety culture that is driven through the entire organization and the extended teams.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jose Alday. I'm the project executive for Turner Construction. I want to thank you all for inviting me to this panel. And I couldn't have said it better than some of my fellow panelists. Safety is number one in our culture. We lead with safety. Every meeting starts with safety. We really try to, for every person, every worker that steps foot on our project, they are all leaders in safety, and we really try to drive that home with every person that walks on the project, that they have a key role in this, in the safety of our projects, that their voice is heard. And not only do they feel like they're cared about, because our goal is to get each and every worker on site home safe to their families, completely injury free, but also that they have a voice in our team, that they can speak up when they see a condition that is unsafe and bring it to our attention. And I think that resonates very well with our construction workers, that it creates a high morale, that they're cared about, that they have a voice. And we and in some cases we invite them to lunch and we want to hear what they have to say. So it's really an inclusive practice that we have with our safety. One of the key things that we have in our organization, and really the number one thing, is building life. And that means living injury-free every day. And that's something that we promote in our daily huddles. We promote a safe practice, and we make sure that we're constantly communicating and we're constantly on the same page with every activity that happens on the project. So it is the key to our success, really. Thank you.
Good morning, all. Devin, Caringella, Safety Director for Clark. I assure you I will not fall off the stage. I know some of you are thinking this. And if safety was a priority, someone would be standing here and helping me. But I agree with everything everybody said, so appreciate that. Being a safety director, I get a lot of questions, right? And one of them is about safety and safety culture and all the conversations we have. But I agree with Rob the most that it's a core value at Clark. So we have, 5 core values, and safety is the first one. And the challenge we have with that is you hear about safety first, right? You hear about safety is number one. Has anyone watched the video by Mike Rowe? Mike Rowe that does Dirty Jobs. Has anyone seen the video called Safety Third? Okay, if you haven't seen that, watch Safety Third, because it really talks about how do you truly prioritize something. And I love that because it's a core value. So your priorities change, but your core values do not. And that's just the way that we approach it at Clark. And the last comment would be, we talk a lot about relationships, right? Well, relationships don't always have to be good. When you're in construction, they're not always good relationships. They're just relationships. So you get to know somebody. And I think I'm at an advantage because, Bill Calhoun went through all of our programs, and we have a lot of programs, but with relationships, and a few of the photos, if you've noticed, on every safety helmet is the employee's name for all of our Clark workers and all of the trade partners on our job sites. And actually on the Clark vest, we have our name as well. Because if you want to have a relationship with someone and you approach them and you have a conversation, it says our name, my name, everyone's name at Clark, on 2 places, so that when you're talking to someone, you see their name and you can have an actual conversation. So I love that we did that in the last 2 years.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Now, I have a safety observation. Okay, for everybody. How many people in this room in your organizations have stop work authority for everybody in the organization? Raise your hand. Yeah. How many people in this room saw me standing up here in an unsafe position and didn't stop work? Did you stop work? No, because it's very hard to stop work. When you're in a peer environment, just saying that we have stop work authority doesn't really mean we have it. Even when, we all believe in it. Everybody in this room believes in it. I believe in it. And I was standing up there until I finally figured out, this is crazy. What am I doing up here? Okay, so I just want to point out that safety and safety culture is a very difficult thing. So let me ask the panelists, and in no particular order, just anybody who wants to address this. We've heard a lot this morning about, it takes effort, and therefore it takes money and resources to create a safety culture. Why should a company try and do that? What's the benefit? Anyone want to address that?
Well, like everybody said up here, if people are your best tool, right? This the most important thing in your organization, then people then are important, which means safety then becomes important, right? So for us, I think, a lot of people have already kind of mentioned it. It's about building relationships. It's also about caring, right? We understand that safety is really the value of caring. If you care about something, then you want it to be safe, right? That's really, if you kind of boil it down in a nutshell. The reason I tell my wife to wear a seatbelt in the car really isn't about safety. It's because I care about her. And since I care about her, then I tell her to be safe. That's why I went out and spent $1 million on a vehicle for her, because it was the safest one possible. But building those relationships is important, but there's a how to that, right? I think most people understand that you should do it, but how do you do that? Some relationships are good. Some relationships are not so good. We practice a series that we call Selling Safety. My boss, Rod, actually developed this and put it on. And I know it's kind of popular amongst a bunch of safety conferences. You've probably heard it before, but he actually has a sales background, and he goes through the selling process with us and makes us practice, role play it. Everybody loves it, right, John? Everybody loves doing this in our meetings. But it helps you really focus on what's important, right? Listening, understanding, developing a need, right? I know what I need as a safety professional, but as I'm talking to somebody, what do they need? And how do I find that out? And so that, to me, is about that culture, right?
Chris, you want to say something?
Yeah, no, I think that's all very important. So how do we look at it as an owner? Well, over 400 projects going on at any one time. Clearly, there is an ethical responsibility, the way I perceive it, to maintain a safe climate and a safe workforce, whether they are our employees or whether they are contracted employees. We make no difference between the two, and that accountability does not change. So, above any financial business reason, there's an ethical reason to maintain a safe environment. But then there is a business reason. We, at FPM are always conscious, and we have owner-controlled insurance program for our major projects, about what is it going to cost us to have an accident, both in terms of finances and schedule. And can we invest in a company that is not considered safe? So one of our key selection criteria is, in fact, the safety record. And we have actually have several, one or two companies, won't go into names, who we do not work with anymore because they have not proven themselves to be safe, either from an accident or from a near miss and a perception. But then I think for USC, independent of the business relationship we may have with contractors, there's a reputational piece. We at USC do not want to be perceived as an unsafe place to work. I think it's very important that we're mindful of that because we have a role within the greater community, both here in Los Angeles and in the greater academic community. So we really look at those three pieces as essential for why having that safety culture is going to be so important. And some of them transcend just us, but we look at it holistically.
Okay, let me go on. I think what we're hearing is safety is beyond safety rules and regulations. We can teach safety rules and regulations until we're blue in the face. But if we really, really want to impact safety, there's certainly safety in design, which we heard about, but there's also the idea of a culture that really creates safety in the ethical way in which you teach your employees and your contractors and subcontractors and everybody else on the job site. So now I want to ask another question. Okay, we're here about teaching safety culture in undergraduate and graduate education. Okay, in education in general. So my question for the panel is, why should universities introduce concept of safety culture in the education? What are the benefits that you perceive from the university teaching these to engineers and construction managers and other degrees? What are the benefits that you perceive from a company perspective? And what are the benefits from a student's perspective? Why should a student care? How many students are here? Raise your hands. You got a whole bunch of you. Why should they care? Whether they're taught about safety culture, they're going to come to work for you, and you're going to create the safety culture. And why should they care?
I'll take a first shot at this. To me, coming out of college, if I understood the role safety played in construction, I feel like that would have been the competitive advantage just for me to be better in my career. It could be purely just looking at it as like, if I understand one massive part of the industry and I'm coming into the industry already having a good baseline of that understanding, you're gonna rise to the top pretty quickly
because you will have that foundation piece of what a lot of other students don't have coming out of college. From a USC standpoint, you then become the college that is producing better engineers and better construction managers. Like you're helping build an industry from the bottom up, so to speak. That's why I think it's a massive upside for it.
Yeah, and so I added that we're teaching students everything there is to know about construction, and we're not adding safety to it, where safety is what will stop any job. You have a safety incident, everything stops. So why not educate them on the most important thing in construction, which would be safety? We talked about earlier how every employee at Clark Construction has to make 5 safety observations a week. So whether it's 1 a day or 5 for the week. And we're starting to realize with our young engineers, they don't know what to look for. Like they have no clue. They're going out there, and that's why if you look at all our trending, we've made thousands of housekeeping observations and very little to do with material handling or, dropping objects. We got plywood flying off the 20th story of a building, in Century City, telling you too much happened. But we're not looking at securing plywood. We're not looking at securing plywood. We're looking at, the cords and the housekeeping aspects when they really need to start getting engaged in it early enough and saying, all right, what is a critical risk? But what should we be doing versus, that trash can's.
Or Devin, it's the attention paid to PPE, right? Like everyone wants to pick the low hanging fruit.
So, anecdotal, we started our observations and we had hundreds of observations of people that were wearing pants. That was in the PPE section. So they evaluate PPE and they were like, PPE is good. And they would make a positive observation on one of our jobs where people were wearing pants, because that was one of the observation criteria. Yeah. So like pants are in place. Like, no, we got to move beyond pants, but to like actual critical risk. So educating them early. That's important stuff.
Yeah. I can't imagine a construction site where people aren't wearing pants, but that's okay. It should be interesting. It's unique.
If I just something to add to that, I think is something that's valuable for all of us, no matter what our role is. If you wait until a student gets to their organization that they're going to work for to start talking about safety, what does that show them? Regardless of what the material is. If you don't train it in school, if you don't speak to it in school, you're sending them the nonverbal communication that it's not really that important. Let that sit in. If you wait until they get to their company and say, hey, okay, company's going to do that for you. Guess what? We're already waiting too long. Okay? So, as was brought up a little while ago, I'm just going to say it, common sense is not as common as we think it is, right? So, setting people up for success, setting our young leaders, our future leaders up for success in that training program is essential. Thank you. Anyone else want to? Well, I did want to point out that, it creates a foundation, having it taught in the university level, but we're never done learning about safety, even at our levels. It's a continuous growth, continuous improvement. And so I'm learning things as I go through my career as well, with the different challenges and tasks that we have in place. So setting that learning habit up early is going to set them up for success, definitely. I just want to emphasize something that Ed touched on earlier. On your tables, there's this piece of paper. I hope everybody takes a sheet of it. It says, why teach safety culture concepts to undergraduates? I'd really recommend you read it. Take it with you. Read it. It talks about an incident where in Jack Tollner's early career, and I can tell you in my early career as well, we were young engineering graduates. We weren't construction management people. We weren't construction engineers. We were civil engineers. But the first thing our boss told us to do was go out and help supervise a construction job. Okay, I and he didn't know what to look for. We were both lucky. We had construction foremen around us, because that's the way all companies worked in those days, who were knowledgeable, and it could help us keep out of danger and help us see when something dangerous was happening, even back in the early Middle Ages when I started. But
with Jack, he had a friend who was in a class with him, one of the company classes, and then was assigned to being a construction manager. And he was so grateful to go out and be a construction manager. Guy's name was Ben Burns. And Jack kept thinking, I hope he has good, experienced construction people around him when he goes out. He went out on his first job. There was an explosion and he died. Okay. What was the explosion? Some welders were welding on a piece of pipe that had natural gas in it. And it blew up a tank. Now, that happened a long, long time ago, but I can tell you that 5 years ago, in what used to be called the Gulf of Mexico, there was a similar accident. A welder was welding on a piece of pipe. They hadn't checked it out, even though they had all the safety management systems in the world. They'd signed off on job hazards analysis and safe work permits and all the rest of that. Nobody paid any attention to it. 3 people died when the tank blew up. We can't accept that as an industry. We just can't accept that. And the problem I helped analyze the accident I just talked about. The problem there was they had all the safety management systems in place, but there was no safety climate. There was no climate that said, this is important. When we fill out a job hazard analysis, let's think about the job. When we get a safe work permit, let's make sure the work we're going to do is safe. And so I just want to point that out to everybody. There's also in that attachment a list of our executive insights that NAC has put together that are really small. They're 2-3 page things. They're easy to read quickly. That can actually be a guide to how to implement a safety culture that you could teach undergraduates from. You could even teach graduates maybe from that as well. I'm not sure. Okay, I have another. Okay, next question for the panel. I'm done philosophizing. Okay, how have safety-related technologies changed your approach to monitoring and improving safety job sites? And how have they influenced your organization's safety culture?
Well, from FPM's perspective, what we use is really a cloud-based system for safety recording and safety analysis, which has really made things very, very productive for us. So I'll just use this as one instance. So rather than having, for example, a safety report generated, it has to into the office and people have to huddle around it. We have these things. We have them generated now very easily. They are handheld based, and we can get that safety information into people's hands as soon as possible in order that that information is used very rapidly. So I'll use that as just one example from FPM's perspective. Though, we have used robotics, which has helped us in things, particularly in some remote area of inspection, which has helped us great. So I'll pause there. I'm sure others have great techniques.
All right. How about some of the rest of you? Want to talk about technology and how it's helped you?
So some of the things that we've been using over the last few years, telematics. So as we all know, to get to these job sites that we're working on, our work areas across our operational environment, we've got to drive, most of us, right? And so some drivers are not as good as other drivers, right? So sometimes we need coaching. We need to understand what's happening on our roads because, frankly, when you have, a large truck full of equipment, it takes a little bit longer to stop. You need to have a little bit more of a passive approach to all of the other drivers around you. So when I say telematics, some of you may or may not be familiar with it. It actually pulls data as an individual drives, and it will use sensors and other things that are that's hardware that's included or integrated into the vehicle, And through those features, it will send us information about how safe that person is driving, whether it's hard braking or harsh acceleration or, turns that exceed a certain G-force, right? That could be hazardous to the driver. Now, through the same company, and this is becoming more common in the industry, they're taking that a step further to provide AI coaching and notifications when the system notices maybe there's a distraction for the driver, when their eyes are not focused on the road, or maybe there is fatigue that's setting in and someone's, dozing off, right, when they're driving. So those features are now available with those types of tools that are out there for people to use, and it's becoming more and more common. So those are some of the things that we're using.
Great. Devin, you had
Yeah, I mean, there's telematics and there's the tracking and trending of all the data that we collect, but like a useful tool that we've adopted in the last year for utility strike avoidance is a rigid Seeker SR24. So we're hitting a lot of utilities. We're hitting utilities, as many of you probably know what. We would install the utility or the 10 power, and then we would hit our own utility. So you go back and you say, what could we do better? Well, we talked a little bit about that, where you could use detective tape of some sort, but we're using like GPR scanning for all utility, right? So we don't hit an existing utility, depending on the as-builts. And then once the GPR, we have the drawings, but then we go back and scan it with an additional scanner. So before we start work, before there's any mechanical means of digging, we use an SR24 scanner. We have 2 of them on the sites here at USC, just to prevent all of the little utilities that we may hit, even if it's irrigation or a dead line, just to identify. And that's been a really useful technology. And make it mandatory.
And as you know, that everything here at USC is highly documented.
Both you and Turner are very well aware of that fact.
That's what was
It's always a surprise.
That was crazy, because we would have these just elaborate 3D models of everything, but it doesn't matter how great the plan is that you're looking at. When the excavator gets on site, he starts digging, he'll tear through everything that's on the truck. It doesn't matter. You physically have to be there to observe what's there and be able to detect it. And the great thing for us has been, even if we scan it, right, and there's nothing there and we hit it, at least we knew there was nothing there that was potentially energized. So that's been really good.
We're using drone. So we'll do some inspections like QA/QC inspections or safety inspections if we need to with a drone. And so that the whole idea, if you go back to like the hierarchy of it needs, if you eliminate the ability for somebody to even be in an area where they need to be tied off, then you don't have the problem of them ever falling, right? So it was a little bit of a shift of mindset. One of our first projects we really started doing, we're building a hotel out of Disney. And my team wanted to get on a swing stage to be able to do the QA/QC inspection in the exterior. They called me up. They're like, hey, we need fall protection. I said, no, not at all. You guys, we need to be smarter. We need to figure out how to accomplish the same task without putting yourselves in harm's way. A little bit of resistance, but then after they started to see it my way, they were like, oh, yeah, we can use a drone. And now we're starting to use that as standard practice on a lot of larger projects.
One thing I was going to bring up, and this is something that's been implemented a while back as well, as hard hats. I mean, something as simple as a hard hat, the type 2 hard hats that we're really, really encouraging all our trades to start using. And even if they don't use it, we give them, we try to give them as much advanced warning as possible that, look, if you come on a Turner project, you are going to be expected to use the type 2 hard hats. And for those of you who are not familiar with it, it is a chin strap hard hat. It's the latest technology. And as things get better through technology, we'll definitely implore something that's better. But I think about some of my times in the field way back when we didn't have those, and how I could have used one, because when you're climbing through a scaffold, or you're climbing through a ladder, or you're climbing through somewhere where your hard hat could essentially be thrown off, it's very important to make sure not only as a fall hazard, but that you're still protected. So that's a technology that's existed for the past year, but again, it's one of those things that's continuously improving. Just something as simple as a hard hat. The PPE technology is getting better.
Good. Okay, let me see. Trying to remember what I did. This is a tough question. Given that we want universities to teach more about safety culture to the graduates coming out, how can universities better prepare new graduates to engage with the safety culture in the industry? What do you think from your perspective? I mean, we all know that everyone's curriculum who's an academic has no room for anything new. Okay, that's a given. Let's understand that. But we still want them to do this. So what is it? What's your recommendation? What should they be doing that you don't think they're doing that?
Yeah, we all have different experiences. I think one of and I actually, mine was very much in the military. And when I used to teach at the military academy, long before any of these students were born, we tried to take every single class and treat it as if it was a military briefing so that the cadets get very used to the culture and the environment that we're going to be in. I think as we look at engineering, and we'd have to look at every single class and what the variation would be. But you have to say to yourself, what is that job site culture? And we've discussed many aspects of that right now, right? I wouldn't say we run around in hard hats every day in class, but there's PPE. There is, we've talked about safety minutes. I think an integration of those common things that they would be expected to see in the environment as the norm within the classroom environment makes the newness, it takes the newness and the strangeness out of it when they hit the corporate world. And then they are faced with, well, yes, we've done this. I did this all the time. The number of new, when I was with other companies, the number of new employees coming right out of university, we had to actually take and show them how to put on the PPE. It was, to be very honest, many of the older hand workers they'd have a lot of challenges with the credibility stand of that, right? So I think taking these things and just integrating them within the classroom environment would not dilute what is being taught in the classroom, but would actually add a degree of the environment that they will be in.
I think also if you're teaching one of these classes, like reach out to one of us. I'm more than happy. Like personally, I'm more than happy to sit down and look at your curriculum and say, hey, like, here's how I would integrate it throughout what you do. Because it's not just a singular class. It's an integration through every step of the process. So I'm available.
Yeah, you kind of stole my thunder there. It's all good. I think beyond that is understanding that safety is a choice. It's a personal choice. You have to make it personal, right? And I think sometimes we blur the line between safety at work and safety at home. It's safety. It's all the same, no matter where you go. And I think if we're able to relay that message, I mean, we have students in here. Do they talk about safety on campus? It's the same thing as safety at work. It's the same thing as safety at home. So inviting people in, bring that real world experience, have, I'm sure you can partner with some of your contractors here on site and do a field trip on their project. And so they can actually see what's going to be in place and how that then can affect people, right? I think that might be your best bet.
Let me just, this comes up at every symposium, by the way. The academics will tell you, we don't know how to get to the people, to the industry people, and the industry people will say, no one's asking us for help. So please, let's get that across. The industry, especially these 6 guys, okay, but the industry in general really wants to help by, invite speakers. There's lots of construction going on every college campus. Go take a field trip.
The best way for the USC community to get plugged into it is right through.
Yeah, and I wanted to just point out in relation as it relates to safety and just creating that sense of awareness and heightened sense of awareness, even at the university level, really a sense of urgency, really, because everything we do on a job site or we don't do can affect somebody's life or livelihood or family. I mean, if we don't take the courage to be aware of this, of how important it is to, and the courage to tell that person that they're performing an unsafe act, that could affect family and generations from years to come. I mean, everything we do on the job site as it relates to safety is so impactful and affects somebody so much more. We're not aware of it. So creating that heightened awareness. I've experienced fatalities, not safety related, but those fatalities haunt me to this very day. So just creating that sense of urgency, that call to arms, at how important it is, even at the university level, to create that foundation is critical in it. But it just needs to be an increased high level of awareness that these are possibilities. And I love the stories you had brought up. I mean, I don't love the fact that how devastating that could be to someone's career, to their lives, to experience that, and for the people that are affected by it is so impactful.
I would add, like, create a routine, right? If we're talking about we don't have capacity or the curriculum won't allow something to be added, you could simply do a safety minute. We did a safety minute and we kicked it off this morning. We do that in business, in industry. Why not do that in a classroom? And then ask all the students, like, to rotate a safety minute, and they'll start getting more and more creative. And it's just now you've created, or you've embedded that, routine in them to do a safety minute. So then when they get into the job culture, they'll hear someone else do a safety minute, maybe have something to reflect.
Yeah, we call it safety moments, but we all speak the same language. I mean, it's all the same thing. Really, it's just sharing that.
Okay, we have lots of students in the room, so I'm going to ask the next question. When hiring new graduates, how does the knowledge a student has of safety and safety culture specifically factor into whether you're going to hire them and your expectations and their future career?
Go ahead. One of you, start. I'll take it. So I can't speak for all the interviewers that you guys will ever experience in your career, but I will say this. When you are effective with how you look at safety, how you live your lives, with your safe practices on the job site, with how you communicate, safety, as you will continue to learn, as we all continue to learn throughout our careers, it's a people game. How effectively you communicate with others, how effectively you lead by example. When you're doing that, it will set you apart from your peers. People will look to you as that leader without you even realizing it. And they're going to be like, wow, okay, they're going to do it. I think I can do it too. That will follow you in any organization that you go to. No matter what that organization's culture, if you are living it, if you are leading by example and setting the example for people around you, people are going to notice. So find encouragement, find motivation in that, because frankly, I can't, I have the pleasure of being up here with people that are very committed to safety across their organizations, but not all organizations are like that. Expect it.
Okay, anyone else want to add to that?
Yes, all right. So when we recruit, that's actually a part of the criteria. When we go to colleges and we hold career fairs, if anybody brings up safety during that recruiting moment or those interactions, our team notes it, like they'll write it down. To the point where I've gotten a lot of, like, someone said, oh, this guy's a nuclear engineer, but he's interested in construction safety. I'm like, he's probably just saying safety. But yeah, so we have quite a few of our recruiters, all of our career fair recruiters look for safety during those conversations. Yes. And encourage all of you students that are looking for careers, include that in the conversation.
Yeah, same here. Safety and quality, to be honest. That's kind of the two things we're looking at. And we kind of say tongue in cheek, but it's, if you don't do anything else right in PENTA, do safety right, and you'll be good.
Okay, any other comments, or one last question? How do you see the construction industry's safety culture evolving over the next 5 to 10 years? And what role will technology and innovation play in this evolution?
I believe safety is going to become ever more important because labor is incredibly expensive compared to material equipment. If you go to other parts of the world where we have been, you will find that labor is actually the cheapest or less expensive piece of the construction experience. In the United States, and in our culture, rightfully so, it's the most expensive. So preservation of that labor, and preservation to be able to hold that labor, because who would want to work for an unsafe company? I wouldn't. Is absolutely essential. And as that workforce shrinks in the trades, And the workforce in the trades is shrinking. It is shrinking. It's it's a demographic issue, but it's also that we people don't want to go into the trades, or we have trouble getting people into the trades. It is shrinking. That preserving that, maintaining that, is going to become absolutely ever more important. I think technology will be a great add, whether it's wearables, and there's a whole lot of issues associated with wearables. I had them in the Middle East on these huge sites where you had to know where everybody was, or they'd just disappear for days, whether they wanted to or not. But I do believe that technology will have greater and greater impact as that workforce shrinks. And we have a requirement to deliver at least the same, if not better, in terms of our product.
Okay, anyone else want to add to that?
I think if we keep enhancing our goals and look for that continuous improvement, it's going to get better. I mean, speaking from my own experience in the past 26 years, it's changed dramatically. I think back to when I first set foot on a job site as a young recruit, and we didn't have to wear glasses or safety vests or gloves. And just seeing how it's evolved so far, I can only see it getting better, especially with technology. But it's going to come down to making sure that we set our goals. What do we want to achieve? Do we want to achieve a 0 incident rate? We can do it. It's just the matter of just putting the resources in place, being dedicated. And then, yeah, like Chris had said, the technology is going to enhance it, but it's really going to come down to setting that standard and setting those stretch goals. And what do we want to achieve in the next 5 to 10 to 20 years?
Okay.
Well, I was just going to say, I think in the construction industry, sometimes technology is a bad word because it signifies a change in habits and the ways that people did things. But realistically, technology is everywhere we go. As probably a lot of your students can tell you, AI is everywhere. And we are starting to use it in our implementation of JHAs, where a crew leader can actually speak to his phone, basically set up the day, what he's doing, where he's working at, the type of activities, and it'll basically write it out and organize his thoughts in a nice, concise manner. And it's helped our trade partners really think about what it is that they're going to be doing. So that evolution, it's happening. It's already here, and it gets better every day.
Just one thing that I think is important to highlight. A lot of our workforce, they either didn't finish school or they finished school and they really couldn't read that well. We have several foremen that taught themselves how to read in the field with their spouses, going home, working with her to help them to read. So just understand, as technology continues to improve, one of the reasons that folks are so averse to receiving that change is because the way that you and I might look at technology isn't the way that all your field force looks at technology. And so I just can say that as an encouragement for all the young minds and the future leaders in this room. Please, as we continue to modify and improve our technology that's in use across our organization, don't leave the folks out that really might not understand the simple things that you might think they understand. Does that make sense? So I think that's an important part of this.
Very good. Okay, we have some time left for some questions from the audience. If you want to question anyone.
Hi everyone. Before I ask my question, I just want to say I appreciate everything that you guys have shared from the industry perspective. I'm a graduate student at USC, and then I'm conducting a study that studies the impact of technology on health and well-being. It's on every table of the symposium. So I definitely, from the academic side, reach out to you guys individually about this study more. But going back to my question, I think you guys talked a lot about safety awareness, risk identification, how to build a safety climate more on an individual level, and I want to ask a question about team dynamics in construction. As we also heard from the previous presentations, people and teamwork are really essential in construction job sites. And I want to ask about how to foster this kind of climate change among laborers equipment operators, foremen, superintendents, how do the daily interactions, the communications between teams, how do that foster, how do you guys foster that through that kind of interaction, the safety culture?
Sunny is not an engineer. She is a PhD student in occupational science, and she is working with us on this project where we're looking at teleoperation of demolition. I just wanted to say that because I think this is an area that is very interdisciplinary. So it's not just the engineers doing the research or engineers teaching, but here we have a demonstration of an occupational science student and her advisor being interested in this topic. I think we need to see this more and more so.
On that, great question. So one of the things that we do are daily muster meetings, where every week you bring all stakeholders together and start to talk through, hey, what is it that you're doing today? What are you doing? What are you doing? And at that moment, that's when you start to get the most bang for your buck. Like that's where everybody starts to, oh, hey, I need to get my material out of there. I need to do this. I'm going to do that. And then that's typically just going to be the foreman. And then from there, the foreman will then convey that messaging to their team and let them know, hey, this is what's going on. This is in our area. This is what we need to do. So that's one of the ways that we first start.
Yeah, it's actually a lean concept, right? The last planner meeting. And so that's just getting people in the room talking about what they're doing, how they're doing it, getting them to communicate. That helps foster that relationship between trades.
We regularly, I want to say every month on our job sites, we host a 5-worker lunch where we actually invite 5 representatives from the job site to come join us. It could be usually, I mean, we try to keep it within either a journeyman level or an apprentice level to really get their feedback and let them know, that we're interested in their opinions on safety, and we want to get their feedback. And the outcome of those discussions usually involves a group of suggestions that we share in these daily huddles, and we implement those with the rest of the team during our daily huddles and stretch and flex. So again, that's one way of us getting feedback. But in those huddles too, we really try to get some comments from the rest of the worker community.
Another thing we do is we actually do the job site safety committees, and we'll ask the subcontractors to provide not their foreman, but a journeyman, like their right hand, to be the representative for their company. And then we just get on a massive text chain, like WhatsApp or whatever it is, and they develop that relationship with each other because the idea is, hey, this isn't gotcha. This isn't a gotcha moment. This is hey, you got this going on over here. You probably don't know about it. Here's a picture. I talked to your guys. And then that individual should follow up with their email. Another way seems to be effective.
I don't know. Oh, yeah, that's on. This was really a fantastic panel, I have to say, for me. I want to make a couple comments and then I do have a question. One is Chris is the guy for us here at USC. He's got a huge organization, and I've never heard him speak about safety the way you did. So you're going to be chased by us, Chris. Sorry.
At my age, I'll probably be cool.
Yeah. I also wanted to make a comment about how important I think the idea of us as academics bringing in industry is, and I do want to compliment my colleague Hank and the department. We're doing as much of that as possible, and I do think that's an important part of the solution. However, here's the question in the critique, which is, I think we bring a lot of industry people in, right? And what I've learned this morning is you don't know what to look for when you're new on a job site. And I'm never been on a job site really like you guys, to be candid, right? So I don't know what to look for. And that's emphasizing the importance of you guys actually coming in and telling us and telling the students what they should be looking for. I don't think it's an excuse to say there's no room in the curriculum, though there's no room in the curriculum. But bringing you guys in is actually easy to do for us to make the request. But you guys have to come, and there's people on the stage that come and offer us time all the time. The question is this: how would you like to be brought in with respect to the specificity of safety culture, safety practices, and in which kind of course do you think you'll have the greatest impact? Because we have 4 years of courses here. And pursuant to that, part of the question is, which technologies do you want us to be implementing in our curriculums and classrooms to really emphasize the issues in safety? Thank you.
And I'll start. I would do a presentation. I've done it a few times up in Sacramento State when I was recruiting for candidates out of their safety club. And I had a presentation that I would do on general construction safety, and it just terrified them. It was awesome because we would go through all of these high hazard activities and explain the scenario. But it was entertaining and, kind of eye-opening for them. So I think in any capacity as a safety professional, I would come to any group, and I think they would be interested in just the general construction safety. And then to your other comment about, getting involved, creating room in the curriculum. I kicked off a conversation with Patrick and the remote demolition tool that they're piloting. We would be happy to do something with it. He knows our superintendents and was blocking our trailer at one point. Had a little bit of a, conversation with our safety manager over there. He's like, I was like, that's our safety manager. So getting just to know those teams, and our jobs are totally open for that. I think that would really change someone's life to get on an active construction project with one of our professionals and walk a job. Simple to you.
I promised Mitch I wouldn't mention UCLA, but I have been actually speaking at some of their civil engineering classes. So the way that it worked there is I did know the professor there, so they were just like, hey, I got an entry-level civil engineering class. Can you just come in and have one class where he was talking about safety and how to integrate with everything? With that, they gave me the curriculum. So I was able to kind of say okay, let's shape my conversation around what they're already thought. So
It's just something that might add to that. Great ideas, by the way. We talked about technology a lot today, and I think there's a lot of overlap with construction technology, safety technology, how technology is used in the construction industry. There's a lot of overlap here, so any of those courses I think would be a great area where you could insert safety professionals. Also, I got to say, I really loved your idea about how you run your classroom with different techniques about safety. I might have been in one of your academy classes, so I really like that idea. But really just structuring each classroom in a way that incorporates safety moments or something regarding safety to build those habits so that when they hear the word safety, it's not a foreign word to them, right? It's not alien to them. So, those things, and then maybe if you're talking about equipment in construction, or if you're talking about, different material lead times, any of that stuff, you could incorporate hazard recognition, right? That's something that we're talking about engineers lacking maybe some of those skills when they enter organizations. So just hazard recognition workshops or exercises or presentations, those things I think would be a great addition.
Yeah, we teach 2 different courses internally for ourselves. One's creating a dynamic safety culture, which, obviously talks about safety culture, but then also kind of like what Robert said, looking at hazard recognition. And so having some visual literacy. And we've taken some courses back in Toledo, and it's kind of about infusing art, concepts of art and how to basically look, because as we were, born onto this earth, nobody ever taught us how to look. We learn how to speak, but we don't learn how to see. We were just born that way. So going onto a project and using those concepts, I think are great. And that's just another tool in the tool bag for your students to learn.
One thing we used to do, and I'd like to make it a standard within our company, is for our own staff, when we get into a new phase of construction, we would do a training specific to that phase. Whether we're doing a Mass X phase, or whether we're in the steel erection phase, or energizing a building and the lockout and tagout associated with that. So we would try to do it. So I would recommend just tailoring a curriculum that deals with hazards per phase on a construction project. It could be very, very basic standard practices, safety practices associated with that, whether it's crane inspections, things like that. That would be one recommendation I would do. And then to tailor with a job site visit that is in that specific phase. So that way they can put eyes on it. You can always do it with photos, but you can always set it up to where it's by phase. You can see a project that's at that point in construction, so that way they can actually see it in real life.
I think if introduced into a singular course on a single day would be fun and interesting, but it would have the gee whiz factor. Wasn't that cool? I did that. So I think a suggestion could be if and there's a lot of computers, the quality thread. I look at these as threads in the fabric, right? I'm full of garbage like that. And but this is a significant thread. So you have to look at the program writ large of civil, pick on poor civil engineering. But you look at that writ large, or the construction management writ large among the program. Where is the safety touch points? Much as where would be the quality management touch points? So that it's a consistency, it's a drumbeat. It's not a single event, which can either be digested by a couple, but forgotten by most. So that's how I would think of approaching it. And they don't have to be long touch points. I mean, the safety minute, I think, is actually such an immersion. It's, it's like the old Pledge of Allegiance, which nobody does anymore. But back in my day, we did the Pledge of Allegiance every single day. And, you didn't even know what you're saying half the time, but eventually you kind of thought it out. And the same thing might happen here. So I don't know. I just commend that to you.
Okay, very good. I think we're out of time. I'd really like to thank this panel. Once you got going, your discussion has been fantastic. So thank you very much.